I'm Kim Zaradko with Norwex, and I am here to introduce my lovely friend Lauren Erickson. Lauren's going to speak today about her company called Bridgepoint Investment Associates Incorporated. Lauren's business buys homes in condition and help homeowners sell their homes fast with cash and fast closings. And they also have options to help people with bad credit or no credit. So I'm excited to learn about this. Welcome, Lauren.
Sorry, I'm limp today. But so a lot of you know me, and I think a lot of you know that I have an entrepreneurial spirit. So I'm involved in a lot of different things. I was in healthcare for the last 7 years, and I just quit my job in September to take on this business that my mom and I started last April. So it's kind of a year that we've been in this business. And then I just have a couple other consulting jobs that I do. Kim and I are working on the fundraiser coming up Saturday, April 6th, which I'm sure she's already told you about, so hopefully we see you there. So just a little bit about my company. So the traditional way to buy homes is basically, when you want to sell your home or buy a home, what do? You pick up the phone and you call a realtor, or you ask your friend, who's good at selling homes? So that's what you usually do. The difference with me though is I find houses for people that are in distress or motivated to sell their home. Now that always means it's not a pretty house in a pretty neighborhood. And I did dress up kind of the way how I would go to houses, and I usually have a ball cap on just because I just have to, just present myself that I'm a common person and relating to these sellers, because a lot of times they're in distress, whether they're behind on their payments or they inherited the home, and it's just a stressful situation. So I'm not dressed up to the nines and my heels and a nice business suit. I'm just really there to kind of learn more about their situation and see how I can help, basically. So the difference is I'm not collecting a 6% commission fee like a normal realtor would. Another thing is that you wouldn't have to fix up your house to sell it to me. I basically buy the property as is, and I work with a group of investors in the Twin Cities that they will flip the houses. So if you've seen those flipping shows, it seems like it's a very easy process, but there's a lot more involved. And I'm the person that finds the houses for them. So the way I find these properties are off market. So I can go on the MLS, and there's very few deals on the MLS that work within my buying range. So I'm usually buying at a discount. So sometimes that means, you might have a really great house, but based on your financial situation or whatever life has thrown at you, you might need to sell to me just to get the cash quick. I just had a seller call me the other day. He just got done with a divorce, and he's willing to take a lower price for his home because he needs to pay his ex-wife a lot of money. So there's various situations that come up, and a lot of people don't know the different options that they have. They figure that they have to call a realtor in order to sell their home. And then that also is a lot of costs, because as soon as the realtor comes through your home, they say, okay, you need to update this, and this, which is a cost to the seller. And then on top of that, you list the home, and then as soon as you're selling that home, you're gonna have to pay the realtor. And it could be a longer period of time. You don't know how long your house is gonna sell. Our market specifically, I'm more in the Twin Cities. I kind of peek around here for Prescott, but there's not a ton of opportunity, at least for me and what my business does. But definitely we will see, average days on market is a good between like 40 to 60 days. So, a lot of the markets across the country are slowing down. The best part about the Twin Cities is that we're still very hot. And we won't see as big of a dip when the market does take a little turn, because everything's cyclical, just like real estate. You'll see a dip. So we will have a dip here soon where it will turn back in the buyer's favor. Right now it's a seller's market, and so there's less inventory, which means the seller can get a higher price. Let's see, what else can I tell you about us? But basically, so I'm not doing what I'm doing. I'm not acting as a realtor, or I'm not a licensed agent, but this is something that everybody can do. It's just the education, and there are obviously costs that could incur, or lawsuits that it could happen if you don't have if you're not properly trained on how to do this. And we have, we have an entity set up that protects us as well. So there's a lot. It sounds very appealing to the crowd. There's so many, even on TV right now, there's flipping shows, there's flipping seminars to say, oh, you can get out of debt and financial freedom. But what they don't tell you is there is a learning curve in a lot of this, and there's a lot of education, because if you don't do any of this correctly, you could definitely find yourself in a financial situation yourself. And that's really all I have, I think. I'm sure things will come up as you guys have questions, but I didn't have a really big presentation set up. Hopefully that gave you a little bit of a gist of what we do.
So your investors will then update the property, right?
Correct.
Realistically,
Yes.
what would be a
So
market
the
price?
reason why I buy properties, 50 to 70 cents on the dollar is just because the investors need to make a profit as well. So they might want to buy, fix, and sell the property, or they might want to buy, fix, and hold the property, as a rental income, because it's really important, really, for everyone to have some type of real estate in their portfolio, just growing your net worth, and also just the tax benefits that you have from having a real estate property. I mean, you don't always have to be the landlord yourself. You can hire someone to do that for you, but the tax implications that come with it are just incredible for the benefits and the appreciation that you grow over time, the equity. There's just a lot of benefits to it, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. So another thing that I do, a good point, is some people who don't really understand real estate investing, they see the benefit of it, but they don't know what to do, is they will come to me and say, well, I'd like to purchase this house and flip it, or just hold it as a rental using my self-directed IRA money. So that's something that you can do, because it's tax-free and you're growing your IRA, and you're seeing growth. So you're not actually putting money back in and increasing the value of the self-directed, you're growing that IRA. So it's a really interesting way to have your money work for you, especially if you can roll in your 401 into a self-directed, and some of your other government pensions, basically, which is nice to make that money work for you.
How did you get involved with this? How did you get
So,
started?
great question. I thought about that. So I actually, because I'm an entrepreneur, I constantly read books about, because a lot of this, whatever business model that you're in, it's all about mindset, basically. And if you have a negative attitude of, what you're planning to do with either your business or just a negative attitude at your current W-2 job, you're not going to grow yourself, you're not going to grow others around you. So you really do need to have a really good structure in your mind and what you're telling yourself. So one of the biggest books that you will hear any real estate investor or anyone who's interested in investing in real estate will tell you, oh, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a funny topic because it turns out Robert Kiyosaki actually didn't write the book. So it was a big sadness to me that day, because it's a great book. Basically, he teaches you the different quadrant levels that you can be in, the investor side, self-employment, business owned, and where you want to be, where you're really collecting passive income on all of your business models. And he just talks about the importance of multiple streams of income. And he happened to have, in the middle part of his book, said, oh, if you'd like to learn more about how to, real estate is really the one way that's not going anywhere, because it's in high demand. Everyone is always going to need a place to live. This is what you should look into. So my mom and I invested in an education program where we really learned more, but then we fully have gotten more connected with people in the Twin Cities. A lot of these education courses are a lot of rah-rah as well, like, oh, you can make all this money and this is what you do, but you really need to get into action in your own community and work with others who are actually doing it, because it's very easy to get analysis paralysis, because you could go, oh, I can do this with this property or this, or I could flip this property, or, oh, I could do tax liens. There's so many things that encompass this business, and it's really good to have a good focus on this specific real estate. So.
When my daughter moved to Florida 4 years ago, she's back now. She got a house and she rented, and it was a heck of a deal. The house was beautiful. It was all new inside.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. So my bride and I go down there to stay with her, and people, it was their first flip. They bought this house significantly over improvement
Right.
in a crappy
market.
neighborhood. And they're stuck with this house. They got way too much money into it, and now they got to rent it out.
Right.
Because everything around it was just trash.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a big thing that we run into. And I even go to the auctions at Pierce County, and it's just interesting to watch, people who show up, because a lot of them are cash buyers. So I want to connect with them because I want to know what they're looking for. Because as soon as I send out marketing campaigns to off-market properties, so what I do basically is I purchase lists that for people, specific homes like bedroom, bath count, and then equity position and the age demographic. I kind of tailor it with that. And as they call me, they will either say, oh, I want to sell this property, or I'm actually good with this, but I would like you to sell this property in this area. So for me to get my feelers out of where buyers are buying, that helps me because I immediately can call them and say I have a buyer. And that's the benefit of me too, is having a cash buyers list where I can literally sell a home in 7 to 30 days much faster than if you went through the traditional way and having to wait for traditional lending to go through, or if it doesn't go through. There's a lot of other factors. Another way is sometimes when I can't purchase a property at the discount that I personally like, I do offer sellers other options, because sometimes it's just needing cash in their pocket. It's not like the full amount, it's just them needing some type of money. So we'll do seller financing options, and I'll sell that to other investor, or I shouldn't say sell, I assign it to other investors so that they can take over that, or I do a lease option with a purchase to buy over a few years. So that's where it comes in with the no credit or bad credit, is a lot of people don't have that, you know, traditional financing qualifications, but they do have a down payment maybe of $5,000 to $20,000, where that could be a significant help, where we could put them in a home. And they're different than regular tenants as well. So they're more of, they want to find a home to live in. They will probably fix up the property. They're going to like take care of it, versus normal renters. They just need to rent it because they want to, and they don't care what happens, and they might trash the place when you leave. So I like that we have different options for people as well.
Do you have a favorite project that you?
I personally, so my mom, she does more passive investments. So right now she's doing condo flips in the cities. And that's nice for her, because she puts a little bit of her self-directed IRA into a flip, and then she makes a profit within condo flips, I guess, are 2 to 4 week turnaround. So it's a quick turn, as we call it. Versus I'm more of an active investor, where I like to go out and really see the properties, and I also like to talk to people because I'm chatty Cathy and I'm extroverted. But that's why I really like finding ugly houses, basically. And sometimes they're not as ugly, but right now, regardless, in our market, investors sometimes are overpaying for the houses anyways, because we haven't seen that big of a dip where they can get a good discount, and foreclosures are usually being swept back up by the banks because they see that return, where they could just put it back on the market if it's a good property. Because not every foreclosure is a crap house, and they just list it with the REO realtor. And so that's why John doesn't have any bank-owned properties for me yet to sell.
So typically what you do is you talk to the homeowner, and then you go back to your investors and say, you know, I think you should pay this for it, or do they tell you what they're gonna pay for it?
So no, so basically what I do is usually, so a seller will call me, and I'll usually do a rough estimate based on my software and then the comps in the area. So I really have to kind of look at what the market analysis is telling me for that specific property in that area, and also look at the rental comps, so I can kind of give the investor some options, like, hey, if you want to pay all cash for this, I could get you this, but if you don't love that number, you know, this is an opportunity as well for a rental area. So I present, when I do my rough estimate, I definitely come back to the seller and say, is this something we can do? Then we get it under contract, and once I have that number under contract, then I will go to my investors immediately and get the deal done, basically.
So you know one of your investors is gonna take it out.
Right, and that's the benefit of having, like I say, a cash buyers list, because I know what fits their portfolio and their risk level, because everybody's different, and especially what they're looking for as well. So that's really what I do, is I go to, you know, real estate investor associations in the Twin Cities and really get a good feel for what certain people are looking for. I'm actually calling about a property in Indianapolis today, because I was just in Indiana investing last October, and I'm like, oh, my buyer, I'm like, this is sweet, like, he invests on this street. So if the numbers work, I mean, I can do a transaction across the country and make a little assignment fee from that by giving him that property, because he does those types of quick turns all day for rental portfolios of other investors. So yeah, it gets fun, and it gets addicting almost once you learn it. And I love talking about it too.
So you buy properties as is, and can you sell a property as is?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can,
As long as you have some financing.
Yes, right. So definitely, if I wanted to, I could purchase the property then. Just right now, the market really doesn't make sense for me to do that, like versus I could just give it to the investor who would want to do something with it. Even doing like light cosmetic repairs, they might be able to list it as well, because that's a great point. Some sellers just don't even want to go through that process of even selling it based on their situation, and that's where, you know, I'm not finding these people on the MLS or looking like these people are in distress one way or the other, and they might not be in distress when they receive my postcard, but they might be 6 or 7 months later where they know who to call. So, anyone have more questions? I'm trying to think of anything else I can say.
A few people here work with their parents or have worked with their, how is that relationship? Like, how do you find your, how do you do weaknesses and
Linda
strengths
isn't here
with
right
your-
now, so I'm sure we both be rolling her eyes. No, some people, honestly, when we do go to these, go to various investing events and meetings, people look at it as a really great, it really is a great relationship to have, because this business can be very lonely, and sometimes you are presented with a situation, and that's what's really interesting, is it's always a creative, you're always figuring out something creative for a solution, and it's never the same thing, which I feel like is why a lot of investors love this game we play, basically, is because it's always something different. And my mom brings a different set of skills, being in different markets than I have. I'm 30. I won't disclose her age because she would be so mad at me. She's young, but basically, like, she loves that I have, you know, the actions, that I can go take action, get out there. I have the social media experience, you know, I have the tech experience because we have a really advanced software that I can play around with and make me look very sophisticated when I have properties to market. But she also has the knowledge of just, you know, and just being around longer and having investing experience herself. But there are times when it's butting heads, that's for sure, and you don't always communicate the best way. But people, I do see it as a benefit just because we have someone to talk through the different options or the ways we can create solutions for people, which is very different for other people who just are working for themselves, and if they don't have a mentor in the business or someone that they can call up that's not constantly annoyed by them, that's a benefit. So yeah, but it's definitely a challenge. Like anything, it's just a different relationship. It's work, and you have to separate mom and daughter from business partners, which sometimes you want to quit every other day. But no, overall it's great.
Did you want to mention your significant other, Bentley?
Oh gosh, John loves to have my miniature pet pig stop by the office. I should have put him on my card with me, huh?
It's so cute in the driveway.
I know, you know, this is a nice, yeah, he probably would have loved to come today, but
Maybe you have.
I said that would be a whole separate presentation, because I was at the bank just earlier setting up an account, and I'm like, yeah, we could do a fun presentation, and if he peed around here, I could just clean it up. He's really good normally, but when it's in a new area, I can't always guarantee he's not just gonna pop, squat, and pee somewhere. But luckily, there's no carpet, because he loves like new people's carpet. And then you don't want to scare him because he's 130 pounds, so it'll just be a trail, like a maze trail of pee everywhere. I was like, okay, no one panic, we'll clean it up, but just don't make any sound.
I got here late, but you live by Freedom Park, and if not, you should,
Yep, you see my pig across the street all the time.
because I only live a block away. That's what I was
Yep.
wondering. Okay.
So Bentley loves our neighbor's berry tree, and
That's funny.
he's very fast, like for how big he is. Like, I will literally turn my head, it's like having a kid for like 5 minutes, and then he's booking it across the street. And it's like, our neighbor is one of the least friendly, and I've never seen him, honestly. So I'm like, technically, you could get hurt over there. And the neighbors will call me and say, Bentley's across the street. I'm like, oh. So it's interesting, but
That's funny.
yeah, that's Bentley. So if you ever see a black pig, it's Bentley, and you can just say his name. I try to put the harness on him, so at least he does look domesticated a little bit. But sometimes I don't always catch him in time. And it's hard to, we don't have a fence, and I do put him on a strong, like, rope or some sort, but he knows that if he really wanted to get out, because it's a breakaway harness, he could just do a Superman and do a running start and just it'll break. So.
So you do go by the beat of a different drummer.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, so, and luckily, the city ordinance allows Bentley, so that's nice. Not everybody does.
Bentley and the chicken.
Going back to John's example, that the family that they, you said they over-improved.
Yeah.
Like, so when you're looking at houses, how do you know about the neighborhood? How do you know that?
Yeah, so definitely it's really interesting, and this is why I really like it, being a science major. You know, I didn't follow my biology degree at all that I went to college for, but the research is really important, and that's what really sets me apart from other investors that are trying to find properties like this. Is a lot of times they will just look at a property and just put a number on it and do a horrible evaluation, which can actually kind of put you in the wrong taste in the investors' mouths. Like, if you're not evaluating these properties right, they're going to talk to all their friends and say, don't ever call Lauren because she doesn't know what she's talking about. But it's really about, you know, looking at the crime rates, the schools, looking at the tax records a lot to see how long people have owned the properties, doing drive-bys, and like looking around the area, because a lot of times I'm in the Twin Cities because that's really where a lot of investors are buying and holding or buying and flipping. So if I see, you know, in a rougher neighborhood, but a white female is walking her dog alone, or, you know, that's a gentrification that's happening in that area. Sometimes it's just still stays really, like we call them war zones, where you really don't want to be there with people during the day, are outside. And so in terms of repairs, when I'm walking through houses, there's a good general idea of what I can look for, you know, in terms of like structural, like roof, like obviously usually windows and doors are going to be replaced just because it has a nice curb appeal and people want that security, but you know, and kitchen and baths are always going to be redone. So once you start to figure out what are the major structural things and what are the main things that most people are going to, and if it's a rental, they're not going to put as much money into it. So if it's going to look like it's more of a flip, then it's a different ball game of how much they're going to put into it. So it's kind of, hopefully that answers your question, but there's a lot of like details that go into figuring out what to estimate. But at the end of the day, once I have the property under contract and the number, which is always negotiable, you know, but as long as the seller and I agree upon this price, it could go up, it could go down, but I'll have the investors come in and look at the house with their contractors, you know, their inspectors, whatever they want to do. And if they decide like, hey, this number doesn't work for us, we either have to either go down or whatever, then we'll go back to the seller and negotiate and see if there's another option that we can do. But so it takes a nice pressure off, but at the same time you do have to have somewhat of a good idea that you're in a good range of what the investor would pay for it and that you're doing a good evaluation on it. So, yeah.
As far as the pay side, then does the investor pay you a commission for finding stuff, or does the
Yep.
homeowner pay you a?
Yep, it all comes from the investor. The seller doesn't pay me anything at all. Yeah. So yeah, I hope you guys learned some stuff today.
Yeah, that's
Definitely research, you know, the benefits of real estate investing. I can't preach it enough. I mean, I think now after taking, you know, just learning more about it a year ago, I was like, I wish I would have learned about this when I was 18, you know, and I know all of us say we wish we could have done something had we had more time and gone back, coulda, shoulda, woulda, but it really is a great opportunity, especially if you have some money that you would like to have work for you that maybe you don't want to personally do. Definitely give me a call and we can talk further, you know, what options you might have as well for you. So I have cards that have my picture on it, so normally I don't look like this when I show up to people's houses, but I was like, hey, you remember me then. And this was actually, it's funny, this picture was, I got professional photos done with Bentley, and I should have put Bentley on it. Because that's really something to remember. Like if you see a pet pig in a professional photo with their mom, and it was the most horrific photography session, because you're constantly throwing, you know, food at a food motivated animal. And he's like, in this picture, he's actually like, I'm sitting here and we had someone help us the photographer taking the pictures, and then we had an assistant just throwing food at Bentley so he could just like sit and smile and whatever. And he's like biting, he's not hard biting, but he's biting my arm. And they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yep, just take the picture, take the picture, we're good." So Bentley will be 6 at the end of this month, actually. So I got him when he was 6 pounds, 6 weeks old. My breeder said he would be 32 pounds. We're just 100 pounds off. Yeah. And again, I learned too, I shouldn't have bought from a breeder just because there are so many pigs as well in shelters, because people, they can get aggressive, they can get mean, they can charge. I think Denise has Bentley charged at you before.
No.
When he wasn't, he was still smaller. I would bring him to the brickyard every once in a while when he was a baby, but now I can't really get by walking a pig down the street. People ask me if I do that, and I'm like, to be honest, most people don't see a pig walking down the street, so I'm going to get stopped. So our walking really wouldn't be effective, and Bentley loves it because he hates walking when he's, like, he hates being told what to do, basically.
So it is a lot like a kid.
Just like his mom. Yeah, and the kid. Yeah, it's like we have daily arguments. Like, it would be fun to come and bring Bentley and you guys just tell me all these fun questions that you have for him. I forget how cool he is and how interesting it is because I live with him every day. So I forget that the 20 questions aren't something that people ask every day. And I think he's the only pig in town, actually.
Oh no, I know a lot more pigs.
Right? That was good. Yep. Well, thank you guys for having me.